Someone Better by I_am_l on AO3, Episode 2, Chapter 1. He did well in the sports festival. He took second place, and hero agencies were scrambling to get their hands on him. He was transferred into Class 1A immediately afterwards. They sat him next to a loud blonde and a girl with a rather vulgar disposition who was always flirting with him. Both were several inches taller than him. It made him want to start eating healthier, just so he didn't have to crane his neck to speak to people. Loud Blonde and Vulgar Girl were the only two in the class who were ever nice to Shouta. Apparently, when Shouta had transferred to Class 1A, he had replaced a boy that was rather popular amongst his peers. Loud Blonde and Vulgar Girl, later identified as Hizashi Yamada and Nemuri Kamina, were nice to him because they didn't like the boy he had replaced. Even though he wore girly hair clips and was always a mess, and he was more than likely irritated from not sleeping enough, and he talked about his calico cat, Tara, a lot. When the time came to pick hero names, it was Hizashi's idea for Shouta to be called Eraserhead. Shouta thought it sounded nice enough. Hizashi wanted to be called Presentational Michael, but Nemuri and Shouta convinced him that it was stupid, and he shortened it to Present Mike. Nemuri called herself Midnight, and Shouta thought it was fitting. Not that he would have opposed the girl, even if he disliked it. He was terrified of her. He got money on his birthday, as well as a black and white photo of a blob about the size of a pea. Shouta thought it looked rather like a kidney bean, though he wasn't sure why Inko would send him a photo of a kidney bean. But he didn't have much from his sister, so he pinned it to the wall with a tack. When he sat at his desk for class that day, he immediately informed his friends of the significance of the date. "I am 15 today." Hizashi and Nemuri immediately started planning for a party, which Shouta had never had someone do for him before. Shouta wasn't sure how they would have a party, but he wasn't going to complain. Not when Nemuri was excited, and Hizashi had that smile on his face that made Shouta want to smile too. They went to his apartment after school. Nemuri frowned at the cracked plaster, and Hizashi asked where the TV was, and Shouta informed him that there wasn't one. Nemuri looked in the fridge, intent on gathering ingredients for a cake, only to find it was bare, save for a bottle of ketchup and a couple of cans of tuna that was supposed to be a special treat for the fat cat that was rubbing against her calf. It had been a while since his mother sent groceries. Shouta wasn't sure what to do for the people in his home, so he reached into his cabinets and took out all his candy stash. He handed Hizashi the gummies and Nemuri the chocolate, and crossed his arms, squeezing his elbows. He was anxious, but he didn't know why. Hizashi cleared his throat and started looking around, letting out a happy squeal when he saw the pinned photo of the kidney bean on the wall. "Is your mom pregnant?" he demanded, jumping up and down happily. "No, I haven't seen her in 5 months." Hizashi and Nemuri gasped. "My sister sent me that." Shouta continued. "I think it's a photo of a bean." "No," Hizashi said. "It is not." "It's an ultrasound image show," Nemuri said. And since when does she call him show? "It's a photo of a baby. It means your sister's pregnant." "Oh." He blinked. "So, she's going to have a baby?" "Well, yeah," Hizashi said. "Is it a boy or a girl?" Shouta asked. "I think it's too soon to tell, Shouta," Nemuri said. "She just got married, just before the sports festival. I guess that's when they got a baby." "I suppose so," Hizashi said, awkwardly. Do you want to go out to eat, Shouta, for your birthday?" "Yes," Shouta said, after a moment of thought. "I'll change. Do you have clothes to change into? I don't think anything I own will fit." "We have clothes in our bags. Don't worry about us," Hizashi said. Shouta nodded and turned his heel, heading towards his room. He chose a black sweater and gray jeans. He liked them because they weren't scratching on his skin, like some of his other clothes. He decided to wear flip-flops instead of sneakers, because he liked to go without socks if he could help it. And he stepped out of his room, where Hizashi and Nemuri were waiting, already changed somehow. They were whispering amongst themselves, but stopped when he stepped into the room. "You look great," Hizashi said. He was wearing a plain black t-shirt and a jean jacket with blue jeans. Nemuri was wearing a tight, backless black dress with a neckline that dipped low. Where do you want to go, Sho?" Nemuri asked, already taking out her wallet. "It's on me." They ended up getting ramen with little broiled shrimp on the side. Shouta liked it, because it wasn't his own cooking, nor was it chocolate, even if he couldn't finish the entire bowl of noodles. They ended the night with a trip to the movies, where they watched a romantic comedy. Hizashi and Nemuri gorged themselves on popcorn, while Shouta ate candy. The two drove him home, each taking a turn to hug him and say goodbye before departing. And Shouta felt something warm and fuzzy settled in his chest as he watched them leave. That night, he gave Takoyaki the special tuna for being so good while he was gone, and cuddled with the cat while he fell asleep, dreaming of the smell of buttery popcorn and the taste of Skittles. He went through his internship and made strong connections with a few big-name heroes. He worked and worked until he finally had the highest marks in his class again. He didn't have a flashy, destructive quirk like the others, but he still remained in the top 3 of his class. Months passed. Summer began. In July, when Inko sent him more money for his classes, she also sent a photo of a rather scrunched-up, red baby. Shouta thought the child looked rather odd. Its skin was bright red, and it looked very irritated at having its picture taken. Shouta could share the sentiment. He didn't like having his picture taken either. At the bottom of the photograph was a single word: Izuku. Shouta pinned the photo of the scrunched-up creature on the wall next to his ultrasound photo. Not sure if he will ever be able to meet this Izuku child. Probably not, he noted bitterly. He pinned the photo up and tried to cast the child out of his mind. Izuku's unpleasantly red face still lingered. Shouta knew he had feelings for Hizashi, though he had elected to ignore them until they went away, like he did with most things in his life. It was just one more annoying fly he would have to swat to go with all the other troubling things. He hadn't expected the feeling to be reciprocated, though he had to admit it was nice. Hizashi kissed him on his birthday. They were at a fair, on a Ferris wheel. The lights of the fair, bright and colorful, had danced off his skin. Shouta had the fleeting thought, "I want to kiss him." And then Hizashi had. It was rather surprising, quite honestly. It was also awkward, since they were so young, and Shouta wasn't quite sure if he had done it right. But that was okay, because it seemed Hizashi didn't know what he was doing either. Nemuri had taken a picture of them right as they stepped off the Ferris wheel, holding hands. Shouta, with a confused look in his eyes, and Hizashi, blushing furiously. Shouta had pinned it up on the wall, next to Izuku. They went on a lot of dates after that. Nemuri came too, sometimes. They went out to eat, and to the movies, and to the arcade. It was the happiest Shouta had been in a while, admittedly. He liked being with Hizashi. Hizashi was kind in a way Shouta couldn't quite describe. He made Shouta feel warm. He was also quite good-looking. At least Shouta thought so. He was funny, in a way, even if he was very loud, and when he got overly excited, and he couldn't control his quirk. But that was alright, since Shota's quirk was erasure. He stayed over at Hisashi's place a lot, and Hisashi's parents never seemed to mind, only made more food to accommodate. Sometimes, Shouta caught Hisashi's mother sneaking extra food onto his plate. They played video games a lot at Hisashi's house, sometimes board games. Sometimes they did homework. Sometimes they just sat there in silence, Hizashi playing a mindless game on his phone, and Shouta reading a novel. Hizashi liked to joke that his parents probably thought they were doing something else, though he never clarified on what that something else was. Should have thought he probably meant kissing, though they did that a lot too. Exams came and went, and then the school year was over. Should have spent more time with Hizashi and Nemuri than he had the previous year. Takara, joining a lot. They spent a lot of time at the gym, training to control their quirks, or, in Shota's case, working with weapons. Shota had only just taken a liking to his capture weapon, which he carried on his person quite a bit now, even though it was a bit heavy. It was sort of like a weighted blanket, and Shota could appreciate that, since he loved the weighted blanket that Nemuri let him use whenever they slept over at her house. In July, just like the previous year, Shota came home to find a letter on the mat from Inko. When he opened the envelope, a photograph fell out onto the floor. Another photo of a baby. The same word on the bottom of the photograph. Izuku. He was quite a bit bigger in this photograph, and a bit more human looking. Shota supposed that was inevitable. He was smiling at the camera. He had exactly 4 teeth. Shota counted. His hair was long, sticking up around his head, in a halo of green and black. He looked like a piece of broccoli, or perhaps a cabbage. Shota unpinned all the photos from the wall. On the back of the ultrasound photo, he wrote kidney bean. In the photo of Izuku as a newborn, he wrote creature. In the newest photo, he wrote cabbage. He thought it was quite funny, though Izuku might have been offended. He pinned the photos back onto the wall, in order that he got them, and stared at them for a while. Yes, Izuku. Perhaps I should get a sign that says, Life Cycle of Izuku. In his 3rd year, he met a voluptuous girl named Emi Fujikado. She was funny, he supposed, since everyone else seemed to laugh at her jokes. She had sea green hair, and he liked it, because it reminded him distantly of his sister, and even more distantly of his father. It made it hard to look at her sometimes. She seemed to like Shota, for whatever reason, always telling jokes to get him to laugh, and seemingly to have more and more fun when she failed. Shota liked her, so he didn't complain when she was around. The 3rd year of UA was undoubtedly the hardest. There was nothing but work, interviews, exam, training. It kept Shota busy, and he loved that. He mastered his capture weapon in that time, as well as his mixed martial arts class and his parkour class, though he still attended to keep his skills sharp, just like how he did flips around his apartment for gymnastics. He knocked over a lot of bases doing that, and his cat hated it, but that just encouraged him to do more. If he was being honest, he loved it when his cat looked painfully. The cat hissed at him from under the couch every time he pulled off a triple backflip. When he finally finished UA, he started working as an underground hero. He, Nemuri, and Hizashi worked together a lot, especially when a big-named villain crossed their paths. But Shota was always gone before the press could get a hold of him. 17 years old, and already a successful and respected underground hero. Shota wondered if Inko would be proud of him. In that time, he sold his apartment and sent Inko his new address. He pinned his pictures up on the wall and shoved his medals from gymnastics contests long forgotten in a box in his closet. Inko still sent him money. He got a new photo of Izuku. He was smiling at the camera, shyly, hugging himself. He was rather chubby, but Shota supposed that was normal for children at that age. His hair was long, longer than it had been last time, and it looked like as if it hadn't been combed or cut. Shota brushed his fingers over the spot behind his ear, remembering the haircuts his mother had given him before she disappeared. The even present cut behind his ear, and the prinkles of his scalp. Shota wondered if she still mailed him groceries every so often, and if so, if there were bags of rotten food waiting outside of his old apartment for a boy that wasn't coming back home. Shota wondered, briefly, if he should send her a letter saying he didn't live there anymore, before dismissing the thought. He hoped she wasted her money. On the back of the photo, he wrote Greenstock. He hung it up next to Cabbage. His face started getting scruffy and pickly with hair after he turned 18, but he didn't like shaving, so he didn't do it often. He didn't think Hizashi minded much. He liked rubbing his hand along the side of his face and kissing his forehead, for whatever reason, but he wasn't about to complain. Hizashi moved into his apartment right after Shouta turned 18. His fridge was filled with groceries now, rather than just tuna and the occasional half-eaten chocolate bar. He slept in Shota's bed, and Shouta liked that because Hizashi hugged him and traced the scars he had gotten from hero work at night. Half of the closet belonged to Hizashi, and half to Shouta, and you could tell because half of the closet was filled with very bright colors, and half were muted grays and blacks. In the bathroom, Hizashi's shampoo sat beside Shota's, along with his body wash. His hair gel was on the counter, his hairbrush too, along with several hair ties that Hizashi put in the same container that Shouta kept his kitten hair clips. His toothbrush shared a space with Shota's in the cabinet. His razor sat next to Shota's. All of Shota's space was being shared by Hizashi, but Shouta couldn't find it in himself to mind that much. Shouta took day shifts, and Hizashi night ones, and they hung out in the few hours in between each, either talking or cuddling, or something in between. Hizashi patched up Shota's scrapes and bruises, and Shouta did the same for Hizashi. When Shota's dry eye was bad after patrol, Hizashi bought him eye drops, and when Hizashi's throat hurt after using his quirk too much or his ears ached, Shouta brought him water, throat throgners, and noise-canceling headphones. It was good. In the summer of Shota's 18th year, Shouta got two things in the mail: his regular letter from his sister, and an official-looking envelope. He opened the letter from his sister first. Izuku, 3 years old. He had freckles now. On the back of the photo, he wrote Sprout, and he pinned it on the wall next to the other photos. Then, he opened the official-looking envelope. It looked like the wedding invitation, but less frilly. It was an invitation, but not to a wedding. He put the card on the table and sat on the couch, staring at it. Hizashi found him like that, hours later, and sat next to him, opened the envelope, slowly closed it, and put it back on the coffee table, before wrapping an arm around Shouta and pulling him close. He tucked his head under his chin, a movement that was awkward now that Shouta had finally caught up height-wise, and was now only an inch or so shorter than Hizashi's 6'1". Hizashi hummed some pop song he had been playing on his new radio show, and Shouta stared at the wall blankly. Hizashi called Nemuri, and she came with a weighted blanket and 3 movies for them to watch. Shouta accepted the blanket and relaxed under its weight. Hizashi and Nemuri sat on either side, Hizashi with an arm wrapped around his waist, and Nemuri leaning against his shoulder. They ate popcorn and Skittles, like they always did when they watched movies. Shouta couldn't quite bring himself to pay attention. His parents were dead. His father, who he hadn't seen since he was 7 years old. His mother, who he hadn't seen in 4 years. They were dead. They had died together. He had so many questions, and none of them would be answered. Why did they die together? How did they die? Who had invited him to their funeral? Would his parents even want him there, if they were alive? He felt the strong urge to shave his head, just because he thought it might make his mother happy, had she been able to see him, and he tugged at the black strands anxiously. Hizashi took the hand from his hair and intertwined their fingers. A funeral, because they were dead. When people died on TB, loved ones always cried. Why couldn't he cry? Was he even considered a loved one by these people? His stomach twisted. He felt ill, and he pushed away the Skittles. Hizashi kissed his temple, and Shouta leaned his head against Nemuri's, and he fell asleep. The funeral was 2 days later. Shouta hadn't wanted to buy a new suit, since he really didn't have the money. But the suit he wore for Inko's wedding really wasn't fitting for the funeral, and it was too small. They bought a new suit, black pants, black suit jacket, black collared shirt, and a blood red capel. He didn't wear a tie. He took a razor to his face and shaved his beard, something he usually only did once a month or so. The same schedule his mother had shaved his head all those years ago. They didn't own a pair of clippers now, and Shouta was glad for it, since he wasn't sure if he'd be able to stop himself from taking them to his head. Instead, he washed his hair thoroughly, blew it dry, and combed out all the tangles before tying it back into a half knot. In the minutes before it would be time to leave, he paced the room restlessly, adjusted the lapels of his suit jacket, washed his face repeatedly, adjusted his hair. When strands of hair began to fall out of the half knot into his face, he pinned them back with the pink hair clips and started pacing again. Hizashi watched him pace from the couch, looking worried. They decided he wasn't going to the funeral, since he had never met the deceased. But, "Are you sure you don't want me to go?" Hizashi asked. Shouta pressed the heels of his hand to his eyes. He felt like scratching at his skin, felt like clawing his way out. He flexed his fingers instead. Would you? Would you be comfortable with that?" Hizashi smiled at him softly. "Of course I would be," he said. "Anything for you, Sho." Shota's shoulders slumped, and he felt marginally lighter. "Thank you, Hizashi." He sat next to him, and Hizashi hooked a finger under his chin, kissing him softly. His other hand held his cheek, and his thumb stroked over smooth skin. Shouta blinked his eyes open when Hizashi pulled away, smiling slightly. Something came to his mind, and Shouta, having no filters whatsoever, said it. "I love you, Hizashi." Hisashi's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Shouta felt a blush creep up his neck, and his ears burned. His heart starting thrumming in his chest. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Hizashi opened his mouth to say something, but the alarm on his phone cut him off. Shouta stood up quickly from the couch. "Time to go," he said, hurrying out of the house. Hizashi stood there for a moment, stunned, before running after him. They were halfway to the funeral when they realized Hizashi wasn't wearing a suit, and they had to drive back. The funeral was crowded, filled to the brim with unfamiliar people, and Shouta found himself reaching for Hisashi's hand involuntarily. They sat at the back of the pew. Hizashi kept a hand on Shota's legs, and Shouta covered the hand with his own as the funeral's proceedings went on. Almost everyone in the room was crying, and Shouta wondered what it meant if all these strangers were crying for his parents. But Shouta, their son, couldn't manage a tear. A woman walked up to tell a speech, and a hush fallen over the crowd. Shota's eyes widened in shock. Hizashi looked utterly confused as Shota's shoulder began to shake. Inko Midoriya began her speech. "My parents were incredible people," she began. "They were kind and always there for me. I was lucky to have them. My dad taught me to ride a bike. My mom taught me to bake cookies. They worked hard to support me and—" Her eyes, which had been sweeping across the room full of people, met Shota's. Her speech stalled. Why did she lie? She swallowed. "They had their ups and downs, but they came together again 4 years ago, and I think they're happy to have died together too. They've been nothing but kind to me, my husband, and their grandson, the last couple years." She blinked hard. "I'm sorry." She wiped at her eyes. A little boy with long curly hair suddenly ran forward and hugged her leg. "Mommy, don't cry." Shouta gasped. The cabbage. Inko walked down from the stage. The funeral came to a close. Shouta stood up from the pew abruptly. Hizashi, hurrying to follow, and apologized to whoever they ran into. Shouta grabbed Inko's wrist and pulled her along. The woman stayed quiet as he did, until they were outside. What? Why did... What? I'm so sorry, Shouta, Inko said. I didn't know you were coming. Fucking tell me what's going on, Inko. Tears welled in Inko's eyes. Shouta felt nothing but confusion and anger. When Mom left you, it was because Dad got into contact with her again. I'm so sorry, Shouta. She left for Dad. But why wouldn't she take me with her? What? A hand gripped his shoulders, and Shouta knew it was Hizashi. So, maybe we should... No, I want to know, Shouta said. If she left, why didn't she take me with her? Shouta, Inko swallowed thickly. Dad left because of you. And Mom missed Dad, even though he was barely around to begin with. And when he said he wanted her back, she just... The condition was he'd take her back so long as he didn't come with her. The words cracked down the middle. Puzzle pieces he hadn't known were missing came together to form the entire picture. Why his mother worked so much. Why his dad had never been home. Why his mother had always been so distant. Did she blame him for his father leaving? Did she want to leave me? Shouta asked, quietly. Inko looked down at her feet. Oh. You were always different. Weird, Inko admitted. Dad didn't really like that all that much, and neither did Mom. They just couldn't handle you. I don't think... No one quite understands how your mind ticked. Is that why you left? Shouta asked. No, I left for Hizashi. He wanted to leave, and he didn't like you. But I wanted to be with him, and you didn't really like him either, and... When Dad left, where did he go? His voice sounded so empty, even to him. No one knows for sure, Inko said, wrapping her hands nervously. But I think he went to another woman. Shouta nodded. And you've been around them for the past few years? You. Inko nodded. I think I need to go now, Shouta said. Inko nodded. That's probably for the best. Shouta nodded. Thank you, he said. Inko blinked. For what? For believing in me. When you were still with me. I'm a hero now, because of you. Underground. Look up Eraserhead. I will, Inko said. And I never stopped believing in you. I'm sure you are an incredible hero. He is, Hizashi said, hand dropping from his shoulder to grasp at Shota's hand. One of the best heroes I've ever met. Good day to you, ma'am. With that, they left. Shouta couldn't sleep that night. His mind was too full. The sheets felt too rough, too hot. When he kicked off the blankets, he was too cold. Hizashi lay beside him, an arm across his waist. He still had so many questions. What's wrong with me? He asked Hizashi. Hizashi stiffened slightly. What do you mean? Why did everyone I love leave me for someone better? Hisashi's hold on him tightened. They're not better than you, Sho, Hizashi said. Those people are idiots if they had any intelligence at all. They would have seen you for how amazing you are. Shouta sighed. Can't be that amazing if everyone packed up and left. Inko said Mom and Dad left because I was different. What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, Hizashi said, venomally. If they couldn't love you for you, then they aren't worth it, alright? They're not worth it. If you ask me, you're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you being you. I guess you love me for me, then, Shouta said, sarcastically. I do, Hizashi admitted, quietly. Oh. It felt like his brain was rewiring itself. Wait, did you just say... Hizashi pressed a cheek to the back of his neck. Go to sleep, Sho. Okay. 2 pictures of Izuku later, and Shouta was 20 years old. He hadn't gotten any taller, but he'd gotten broader, his chest and arms more defined, the fat from his childhood that had remained in his face having melted away to reveal sharp features. He was 20 years old when there was a knock on his door, and a woman in a police uniform waited outside. There was also a woman in a flowery dress and a cardigan standing beside her with a clipboard and a stack of paperwork. Shouta frowned at the woman. Can I help you? He asked hesitantly. Hizashi, what did you do now? Yes, you can, the police officer said. Can I come in? Shouta nodded, leading the 2 women to the couch. And was that a kid? Not just any kid. A green-haired kid. The cabbage. I'm gonna be blunt with you, Mr. Aizawa, the officer said. Hizashi Midoriya left his family, giving up custody of Izuku as well. And Inko Midoriya is dead. You're his last living relative. Shouta felt an odd numbness in his hands as the world around him froze, his body drenched in a cold. What? Why the hell am I today years old when I find out that this fanfic originally was supposed to be a one-shot? You mean to tell me that chapter 1, that whole thing, was supposed to be a one-shot? Thank God we weren't stolen from that and we got a fuller thing. Well, not full because it's not completed, but we got what we got, and you know what? I won't throw a fit. I won't throw a fit. It is amazing. It is wonderful. I really love this author's writing style. It's a really, really interesting writing style. I really, really like it. Their formatting is also very interesting to read, especially on laptop and stuff like that. And that is the end of chapter 1. We completed it. 2 videos, but we completed it. And I want to talk, now that I won't be spoiling, I want to talk about Inko a little more. I am torn with Inko in this fanfic. Do I think she's a horrible person? No. Do I think she's a good person? No. I personally, as a sibling, let's just say I didn't supposedly maybe have, autism and have signs of autism, and I mean like heavy signs, right? Let's say I was neurodivergent. No, it's not neurodivergent, it's neurotypical. My bad. I was neurotypical, and I was dating a person, and the person was like, hey, you can't take your brother, even though you know fully well that, your brother can't fend for himself in the household that you're at, because for some reason your mother is almost never home or whatever, right? For whatever reason, leaving my brother at home would mean, leaving him defenseless, right? And my significant other, who I plan to marry, is like, no, we're not bringing him because he's weird. Okay, I'm not leaving then. Fuck you. But then again, that's me, and I understand in a viewpoint and stuff. It's just, I'm torn. Do I think Inko should have left? No, Inko did bad in that point. Inko did horrible in leaving Shouta behind. Inko did horrible in literally letting her parents back in and not letting Shouta back in, right? Inko did horrible in letting other people's prejudice literally define what she does and how she views her own brother. That was bullshit. Okay, that was fucking evil. Shouta did not deserve that. He did not. That wasn't something he deserved, but it was something that he was given, unfortunately. And it pains my heart, especially that last, is something wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Because, fuck, my heart pains for him, because I know a lot of you are probably going to be able to, empathize with him. Maybe not in the sense of autism, but maybe in the sense of the LGBT or something where you feel outcasted. And it's horrible to feel outcasted, because all humans want is validation. We want validation. It's why we give in to peer pressure so easily. And it hurts my heart to know that he didn't get that to the point where he feels that, to the point where he feels that anyone beside him would be someone better. And if you think this is the saddest it's gonna get, we're gonna get sadder. This fanfic is not a funny, fluffy little fanfic. Don't get me wrong, there's fluffy moments and stuff like that, but there's also angsty bits. And I love this fanfic. I love this fanfic so much. It's one of my bookmarks. It's one that I highly recommend, even though it's unfinished. And I honestly tell people, don't be deterred, even if it's unfinished. I promise you, it's really good, even if it's unfinished. If you just read the first, series without the second one, which is what I have done, it's still good. It's still amazing. I still think it leaves off pretty coherently. It's pretty good. It's brilliant. It's amazing, and I really hope it gets finished. But not crossing my fingers here. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about Inko. What do you guys what is your guys' opinions on Inko and her behaviors as, a sister to Shouta? I mean, she still believes. Do I feel like she doesn't love Shouta? No, I feel like she still has kindness in her heart for Shouta. But she fucked up. And I don't know if I would have been able to forgive her. She fucked up. God, fuck. Ugh. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.